Oh my goodness, I've never been there.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
interesting. It's a good place.
I bet.
Yeah, she's you were what, from Bremerton area, Tanya?
That's correct.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. That's a little better. Okay, I just this is very tentative here, so I cannot shake the screen too much, or the camera will come down. So I'm expecting a couple, three more.
Sure.
I was hoping to get up to about 8 or 9 based on who said they would be here tonight.
Yes.
And so Jerry is one of those. And as Jerry's heard this spiel before, there we go. John Thomas.
All right.
No sound yet. Okay, and I lost. Oh, there's Tanya. Tanya, are you signed on with your phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, you don't actually. DD Craig does not need what I want to say, a camera tonight, because his talk is so eloquent.
Oh yeah. Right.
Well, I told them all. I says, when you tune in tonight, listen carefully for heart, science, inspiration.
All right. Okay. Well, I like that cue.
I took notes.
Now, I was going to say to you, Bill, that I had coffee with Lana Eagle the other day.
Oh,
Lana.
yeah.
I've suggested that she connect with you. So she's traveling a lot. She works for a lot of the bands with kind of, primarily I think what she's doing is doing some negotiations and so on around mining on behalf of Indigenous partners. Anyway, she was a remarkable Rotarian, and I explained this to her, and I said, this could be a way for you to stay connected. So I will get you her phone or her email at some point, and you can put a little bit of the William McCarthy persuasion in effect.
If you would do that, that would be one. I really liked her. I thought Lana was a very special person, and she was a very good AG. In fact, she used to do when the city council when the district council would begin a new year. She was one of our trainers to bring the AGs up to speed.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. No.
Really liked her a lot. Miss her. She had a great laugh, and I really miss that. Fred. Hi, Fred.
Great sense of humor.
There's our friend. There's our treasurer, Fred. Right.
How you doing? Good evening, everybody.
Right.
I'm expecting at least 2 more. Governor Craig, do you mind if we wait just a few more minutes to see if they sign on?
Not at all. No, that's great.
John, can you hear us? Awesome.
So, Bill, my question for you is the audio good?
The audio is perfect.
Okay.
Great.
That's very good.
Well, I have my laptop sitting on top of 3 of Meredith's cookbooks.
So that you're not looking up his nose.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I'm the financial executives meeting, and we used to have CEOs like Howard Schultz from Starbucks talk to us one time, and there was another CEO who was scheduled to talk, and he wasn't able to do it, and it was at the beginning of video conferencing, and he agreed to take this video conference from Japan or someplace like that, and he started out his presentation by saying, "This feels weird. Can you see up my nose?" That was his beginning. So.
Well, that's actually kind of fun, isn't it? It's a fun way to open it up. I'm expecting. I was going to wait for at least Wade Stewart. Wade is a really good Rotarian. He so wants to stay active in Rotary, and he's a very, very busy person. He's a computer consultant like my son. And of course, sometimes his time is not his own. And he's in Portland right now trying to expand his business, but he was going to sign on tonight from there. So I'm guessing he was staying with his son, so I'm guessing they're trying to figure out the connectivity. And once he's on, I'd like to begin. And if
Sure.
anybody else jumps in, then great.
Now, did I see that Eddie Kisling?
Yeah, Ed said he was going to be on tonight too.
Yeah. Okay.
So he may be a little late in coming on.
You know, his parents were my godparents.
Oh, I hope he signs on then. That would be great.
Oh, well, he's a professional speaker, I believe. So I don't know, you know, I might be a little nervous, but
He is actually very good. In fact, I've got him half talked in to maybe becoming our international service chair.
sure. Yeah.
Our sitting
for that.
chair has had to resign. Her health. You all remember Pamela Deacon Joyner, the lady that was going to have us possibly do a project in Shillong, India. Her health is really deteriorated,
Oh,
and
well, that's,
she can only do so much. And right now she does prison ministry.
oh my goodness.
And so what she said is, Bill, I can only do so much. So she's doing that. That's about the only thing she can do outside the home because
Fair
of her
enough.
health. And I told her, you know, you're doing a Rotary thing, whether you're in Rotary or not. She's just a beautiful, wonderful person. So we've lost her, unfortunately. But so we'll see what happens. We're in flux and we're growing.
Bill, maybe I could just have everybody introduce themselves and let
Sure.
me know how many years they've been involved or whether they've been involved in other clubs or.
Sure. Let's start with Tanya since she's the furthest away.
Okay.
Certainly. So I'm going on 2 years, and I started in Bremerton. I moved out here. I'm working out here in Pennsylvania since February.
And how long had you been with Bremerton?
I've been with them for about a year.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. And you sound very youthful. Is that?
She is.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
DG Craig, the one thing I love about that, she was only in the Bremerton Rotary about a year.
Yeah.
But when she started this trek back to Pennsylvania, she wanted to stay connected to our district.
Yeah.
And so this was the medium for her to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that because I know it takes organization and focus, but I think this is a really great opportunity for people to stay connected. And
Definitely. And it's still my hometown. I own a house out there, and I'm
oh, good.
back, so I gotta stay in touch.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, no particular order, but since Jerry was one of the first ones on, Jerry,
Yeah.
can you, let me unmute him. I don't know if there he is. Okay, Jerry.
Good evening.
Hi there.
So I have had, I guess this is my third Rotary Club. I was about 26 years ago. I was a charter member for the Stanwood Camino Island Rotary Club and served in that club for about 10 years. And incidentally, they just had their 25th year anniversary of their charter last year, and they invited
Yeah.
a bunch of old members to
Yes.
attend a very nice dinner. And then we had an opportunity, we moved to Oregon. We were there for about 4 years. So I was with the Newburgh Morning Club in Newburgh, Oregon for 3 years, I believe. And really happy to be reconnected to Rotary. I've always enjoyed Rotary, but my schedule was such that I just couldn't commit to regular attendance at a club. And so this is for me to get reconnected.
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing that because I think the temptation can sometimes be to say this is just too hard to organize, and so I will fade away or have to discontinue my membership. And so,
Well, I want to thank Rotary for reaching out to me, primarily Bill, but
Yeah.
someone had a database and
yeah,
pulled me back in, and I'm really happy that they did.
excellent. Well, thank you. Win-win. Yeah.
So, Fred, how about yourself, sir?
Well, Craig, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is my third Rotary Club as well. I was involved, I got started in Bellevue at the Wednesday lunch Rotary there, which is a big one in Bellevue. And I was member there for a couple of years. And then moved to the South Sound, and I became a member of the new Gateway Club when the Gateway Club was
Okay.
in its big growth curve.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll
Yeah.
swept me up. He was on my board. I was working at the Lacey Chamber of Commerce at that point in
Yeah.
time. He was on our board, and so I was part of that group for a while, and then kind of went the other direction. And this became an easy way to do it because I live out in the country.
Yeah.
I'm essentially retired, and I like being involved, and I like what Rotary does. Certainly like the things that Rotary International has accomplished in the years that people have been contributing to that. So when Bill contacted me, I thought, wow, what a great idea. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun with Bill putting the whole thing together and learning about it, and writing a few checks. We're writing a real nice one soon.
Yes,
so
we are.
Good.
that's really nice. We're going to help some people around the world, which is really cool.
DG Craig, I have to tell you that we're a brand new club. We have a small treasury, and so we're doing some grants without going through the Rotary process yet. But thanks to Fred and his wife, because of very generous donation, we were able to do, and this thing really exploded. We thought we were only going to do a couple grants, one school in Kenya, one school in Guatemala, using the Rachel Pie system. Turns out, to the surprise of both Fred and I, this is the first time that John and Jerry have heard this, the same $2,500 we thought was only going to do 2 schools, we find out that we're going to do 6 schools.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And I'm just ecstatic. I mean, I read Fred's email just before I signed on, and it's like, wow, we are just so excited to do this. So here we are. We're not even a year old. We're doing our self-funded community grant, and we're serving 6 schools that are going to have educational opportunities that they would not otherwise have had. So we're very excited.
Thank you.
And Fred and his wife were a big part of that. They put a substantial contribution. So thank you, Fred.
Yeah, it was fun. It's
Thank
fun.
you, Fred.
Yeah, it's been fun to do.
So I guess it's John Thomas.
Joined Rotary 2004, South Cowichan, Mill Bay.
Oh, South Carolina.
Past president there.
Yeah.
Did a few years in the old Victoria Club.
Mm-hmm.
Meets at the lunch at the Union Club. And then kind of petered away, and then got contacted or heard about this, and I'm sort of semi-retired, and I'm not around downtown and paying for lunch every Wednesday, just getting expensive there. So I was thrilled to be part of this and continue some Rotary work, and
Where did you say you live now? Where did you say you live now?
I live on the Upper Gorge Waterway in Victoria.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
And so Eddie must have been in South Cowichan when you were there.
Eddie's a very good friend of mine. Yeah.
Okay.
He was on my board of directors when I was the president. And
Yes. Awesome. Well, that's great to see that reconnect then through Rotary.
Yeah, and he lives in the same building as my mother-in-law. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was over at his summer place on Judges Row last summer. We hadn't connected for a number of years, but yeah, really good. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I will begin then. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
I've been a Rotarian since 2001, only with one club, Campbell River Daybreak Rotary. I'm proud to have had perfect attendance since I began.
Wow.
I have always been very interested in Rotary because of my connection through my work, which was I worked in the school district there for 32 of my 34 years in all capacities, as a teacher, as an administrator, as a senior administrator, assistant superintendent when I retired in 2008. but I'd see kids on exchanges, and really I became a Rotarian because my son ended up going to Thailand in '97. And
Oh, good.
when I thought, you know, what's the organization that really makes a difference? It was clearly Rotary. And so that was a bit of a no-brainer. And we have quite a few educators actually in our particular club because it's a morning club, 6:45 a.m.
As was mine, yeah.
And we're a dedicated, energetic bunch. And yeah, it's been nice since retirement to kind of sustain some of those connections with people, you know, that I developed with over time. In the district level, I served as the district trainer for 3 years. And I was youth exchange chair for a couple of years. I'm a bit of an anomaly in that I wasn't an assistant governor prior to this, but hopefully gained enough experience to help me weather the journey as we go through it. So yeah. So my intent this evening is to pretty much share with you a lot of the words that I've been sharing club to club. And then at the end, if you like, I have a little bit of a PowerPoint, which just has some information about the district, or at least a couple of slides that I can show you that might provide a little bit more of information. Although, given your experience in most cases, I'm thinking that you'll probably know much of what I would be interested in sharing. So,
Mr. Governor Craig,
yes.
you can. We have an award to present tonight, and I don't know if you wish to do it before you start or at the end of your.
Oh, okay. I would be delighted to do. Why don't we do it while people are fresh?
Yes.
Okay. Would you provide the background for the award?
Well, I'll give you a little background.
Yes.
And he knows who he is. He's on the screen.
Yes.
But, he had come back to our club, back to Rotary after a certain period of time, and we had a foundation presentation by Howard Svagals.
Yes.
Right after we chartered. And this individual was impressed enough that he said, I am going to sign on to Rotary Direct and get re-involved in donating to the foundation on a regular basis. Soon after that, John moved to the next Paul Harris level.
Wonderful.
And I don't know if you want to, do you want to do something formal in that regard? John Thomas down there?
Yeah.
He is a PH3 now, +3.
Okay. Well, here's what I often say when I'm given the honor of presenting Paul Harris, is I remind people that we don't always see what those dollars are going to do, but we need to know that a Paul Harris Fellowship enables us to have the dollars to make a huge transformation in someone's life. It could be a microcredit loan for a woman. It could be helping out with a water project in one of our larger, more remote areas. It could be helping to fund a Peace Scholar. Whatever we do with those dollars, know that the recipients have a life-changing experience. And so those dollars, and believe me, it's very important to us as Canadians, recognizing that those are actually American dollars that you're gathering, tell us that people are really putting their heart and their pocketbook together to make a huge imprint on the world. So let's hear some applause for as I do an imaginary handshake. Okay. And thank you so much. Very, very.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
So I want you to know, oh,
The-
sorry.
The pin's in the mail, right?
Pins in the mail. I need you to know, John, this morning, I stopped at a little rendezvous point between Port Orchard and Belfair because I had to deliver a Rotary Paul Harris pin. Was actually my pin because when I was in Belfair earlier at the North Mason, when I tried to pin a pin on a woman who was a recipient, I broke it. So I snapped her Paul Harris pin, her first Paul Harris pin. So I felt fraught with guilt, and I managed to find a replacement. And so it's, hopefully she got it at noon today. So
That's a good story.
yours is in the mail, honestly. Yeah. So thank you so much for taking time to be here this evening. And I really feel that this year, when we were at the International Assembly, I was there with another 528 incoming district governors from the world. Our international president, Barry Rassin, announced this year's theme. And as you probably know, it was Be the Inspiration. And I have to tell you, all of us sitting there said, he got it right. He understands that Rotarians attempt to make a difference daily in the lives of others, and they try to bring hope to the world. When I was at our district council meeting well over a year ago, one of our assistant governors, actually happened to be Meredith Green, in whose home this is being broadcast from, raised her hand at our district council meeting, and she said, "Why do we have those district governor visits anyway?" And I was sitting in a chair, and my sensors were drawn to that question. And I thought to myself, you know, I better have a really good answer for that question by the time I meet with 90 Rotary clubs and 4,554 Rotarians. We're the largest district in North or South America, or Europe for that matter, probably 17th in the world out of the 529. But what was most important about the question is the why. I think we always ask ourselves, why do we do what we do? Why do we ask people to become members? Why do we continue to find ways to stay connected when our traditional membership format might not work for us in the same way? Why do we give to the foundation? They're all really important questions. But I think what I really want to focus on is what I call the heart and science of Rotary. You see, years ago, I had a mentor teacher who talked to me about the art and the science of effective teaching. And I thought to myself, you know, there's such a translation here, and we'll call it the heart and the science of service, of being a Rotarian. Because the heart is the why. Why do we join? Why do we commit the time? Why do we stay connected to Rotary? Why do we bring magic sometimes to other people in other parts of the world? The science is really the how. How do you do things more efficiently, more effectively? How do you use your resources, your time to the best of your advantage so that we can have the greatest imprint collectively as Rotarians? And as I've often said to people, I have this theory that as Rotarians, we're all connected by invisible strands, threads we may not see, but they're the connection, because those are the stories that we tell and we retell in celebration of the work we do in our smaller communities and in our larger world. And I believe that at the root of that, if we retell those stories, if we help others understand what Rotary really is and what Rotary really does, that's our best opportunity of growing our membership. You see, when you ask the question, why do we need more members? It's pretty simple in terms of answer. More hearts equal more hands, equal more opportunity to reach out and do the work we want to in the world. So I want to begin by just thanking you for using some of that other 8 hours in your life beyond work and sleep to make a difference and to be connected and committed to what you're doing. So I like to tell a couple of stories, and I think stories are often a very impactful way of imparting what we most want people to understand. And I have 2 stories for you this evening. And the first story is what I call my heart story. And in order for me to tell you my heart story, I have to ask you to take a journey with me to Campbell River, my hometown, 3 hours north of Victoria on Vancouver Island. And it's about 7 years ago, and it's a bleary, dark, ugly November morning. It's windy, it's wet, and we're all walking into the Maritime Heritage Center. which is where the Daybreak Rotary meeting takes place every Tuesday at 6:45 a.m. And in walks a lady with her husband and teacher, a lady we'll call Mary. We'll call her Mary because, well, actually that's her name. So Mary walks in and she's being honored as the Rotary Student of the Month. Now, what's really important about this is, as her teacher explains, the journey hadn't been an easy one. Her husband tried to get her out of the car on 2 occasions to register for courses at the Rob Ron Center for Continuing Education, but she wouldn't budge. The 3rd time he parked the car, took her by the hand, and he walked her in and he registered her for her courses. And now she was about to graduate from high school and she was being honored as the Rotary Student of the Month. But what's important is that Mary is 73 years old. And so you see, when Mary gets up to speak, she's trembling, but she's determined and she's going to tell us about her story. And she tells us that 65 years ago in a grade 2 classroom in the province of Ontario, there'd come a knock at the door. And she said, I just knew it that day. They were coming for me. They were coming for the stupid ones. She was being targeted for special assistance because she couldn't read yet. And there was such shame in that. But what I'll always remember is her husband tapped me on the arm and he said, isn't she something special? And we all heard that in our Rotary Club. And wow, talk about a Rotary moment. We were all connected because that's the thing Rotary does. It honors ordinary people achieving extraordinary life goals. And I think every Rotarian has a story like that. And those stories need to be retold because they either touch the heart or they touch the funny bone. But what they do is they remind us of what we do and why we do it. So I want to talk to you a little bit now about the science. The science is how to do things more efficiently and effectively. As a district governor, it's been a real privilege to go club to club because what I'm discovering is we all do Rotary, but clubs do it differently. The important thing is the end in mind is a convergence point. And I think one of our best examples of wise practice of how to do something is the Rotary Foundation. And I thank you for that contribution you made because you see, that's what makes a difference to us as a world organization. Each year we gather funds annually and those funds are housed for 3 years. And then along with their interest and the interest from the endowment of the permanent fund, they come back to the district to fund those international projects that make such a difference to those who are disadvantaged. I've always believed that we fundraise, we give to the foundation, and we don't always think about it. But here's the imaginary exercise I've often asked people to do. In whatever community you live, take an eraser out and pretend that you could erase every single Rotary project that's ever been done. Then do that internationally. Go out and erase those 2 drops of polio vaccine, the cisterns, the latrines that have been built, whatever it is. And then finally, take those erasers and erase those invisible strands, the stories that connect Rotarians throughout the world and within their communities. We would have such a void. You see, I believe truly that if that happened, would we be this close to the eradication of polio? No, we'd be this close. We would have no opportunity to have made the progress that we have. The other thing I think I need to mention at this point is there's a what involved as well. And the what is the demonstration of what we do. It's what we call public image now. It's capturing the Rotary brand attached to the projects that we complete in our communities and in our larger world. And it's important to keep those front and center to people because here's what a wise person once said to me, and you cannot touch their wallets until you touch their hearts. And another wise person once said to me, you don't give to Rotary, you give through Rotary. And I think that's an important memory or important realization for us to continue with. So let me tell you my science story now. My science story takes us back to Campbell River, and it's the early 1980s. And I must say, all of you are looking a whole lot younger. And am I ever looking young? I am standing in front of 2 social studies 11 classrooms. I like to tell people I'm 6'4". I'm really good looking. I'm a chick magnet. But that would not be the true part of the story at 5'9½", and certainly not a chick magnet. However, what is true about the story is I am the social studies 11 teacher. And I'm a little frustrated at the time because I cannot seem to get students to think beyond their own lives, beyond their hair product, how their new glasses look, who's going out with who on the weekend. And I want, as a social studies 11 teacher, to have them connect to the bigger world. Well, there was a Time magazine article at the time which divided the world into 5 different socio-economic areas. First world were the highly industrialized, resource-rich, strong leadership, basically what we call today the first world countries of North America, Europe, and so on. Second world were the communist countries. Third world tended to be from South America. Fourth world. Fifth world were countries that are on permanent foreign assistance because they don't have the economic infrastructure, perhaps the resources to ever be in a position to be beyond foreign aid. Then I would divide my class into 5 different groups and task them with planning a meal, buying ingredients for the meal, and then making the meal. And then came making day. So everybody's at their stations, they've got their meal, and now we're ready to eat. And the first world table would be set up with a tablecloth, candles, cloth napkins, tableware, beautiful 3-course meal, chocolate cake. Second world, third, fourth, fifth world, kids would have to sit on the floor. They would have brown rice and lentils and a little bit of water. And then I would put every student's name in what I called the walk of life. And I would pull them out one at a time. Your first world, second world, third world, fourth world, fifth world. And then they were ready to eat. And I would send them to their station. And this is what would happen. Inevitably, some of the kids sitting on the floor would say, "That's not fair. That's not fair." And I would stop, pause, and say, "That's exactly right. That's the point of this whole lesson. You see, it isn't fair for all concerned, but you need to thank an ancestor, unless you're indigenous to this continent, who chose to take your family, your ancestry, to the North American continent, because as a result, they've given you access to clean water, to medical care, to education, and of course, to opportunity." And as I would say to my Canadian students in the early 80s, you're one of 32 million in a world of 5.5 billion people. You did better than winning the lottery. You have privilege now that is not privilege that every individual has. So as a result of that, I think we have to always remember that we do because we have the means to do. We have the resources and the ability to transform lives in a small global scale, or I should say a large global scale, or in a smaller community scale. I do because I have the means to do. I am not a man of wealth, but I believe that Rotary, through the foundation or Polio Plus, takes every dollar we give through Rotary and stewards it in a transparent and positive and impactful way. That's why I became a Paul Harris Society member about 3 years ago, giving $1,000 a year US to the foundation, because I believe I want to be part of that important opportunity to share some of what I've been the beneficiary of. You see, our Rotary International Vice President, John Matthews, talks about moving the needle forward. And what he means by that is very simple. He just says if we all dig in a little more, if we all contribute in whatever way more that we can, the accumulated impact of all that we gather together is vast. It creates huge change. There was a young speaker at the Toronto Convention this year, Xavier Ramey, which we were all so taken with. And at the very end, he said, dig into your privilege. And that really resonated for me. When I was at the Peace and Sustainability Conference in Vancouver last year, David Suzuki, a well-known Canadian environmentalist, reminded us we're the only species on the planet that can envision and therefore plan for the future. I thought that was daunting, but possibly exciting. Rotary came out with a new vision statement about the future. It says, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. And I believe that as Rotarians, we are transformed by our connection to Rotary. I get now the part about in ourselves, which I don't think I did when I was younger. And I see the world much differently when I see it through the lens of being a Rotarian. So our future, I always like to conclude this piece on future by thanking whatever impact Rotary clubs have on our youth. Because whenever we give youth an opportunity, whether it's through a student of the month or sponsoring somebody to RILA or providing food for kids in an impoverished area so they can go to school with a clear and well-fed mind, whatever we do, I just always ask people to continue to do it. As I said to you at the beginning, I became involved probably because of Youth Exchange. And I always like to remind people of how important Youth Exchange is to the work we do as Rotarians. You see, the students come for 11 months or we send them away for 11 months. And when they go home at the end of the year, they take with them parts of the experience and the people that they've had, the opportunity to grow to know. They understand better our culture, our likes, our dislikes, our language, our religion, just as we too share parts of them that are left behind. And I love to tell the story of Rashid Ray, who was from Indonesia 4 years ago. And Ray was placed at the very northern club in our district. If you think of Woodlands, Washington as the south, think of Port Hardy as the north. And Port Hardy has 3,500 people. And Rashid came to our meeting one morning, and this is what he said. Good morning, my name is Rashid Ray. I come from Jakarta, city of 17.5 million people. And this year, I am living in Port Hardy with some people. So that was, I'm sure there were less people in Port Hardy than in his high school. Regardless of that, the important takeaway Ray had at the end of the year, I said, as he was getting on the plane, I said, what will you take with you? What will you always remember? And he said, oh, it's so simple, so very simple. And I said, what? He said, it's the clean water from the tap every day for every person. It's the smell of the sea salt air in the morning when I get up in Port Hardy. And you see, when we put those 8,000 students back on the planes to go home at the end of the year, what do they take with them to their various countries? They take with them stories of what remarkably generous, caring, understanding, and accepting people we are as hosts. And as a result, I think that becomes our best opportunity to sow seeds of peace in a world that's sometimes fraught with tremendous distress. So, yes, I'm coming close to the end here. And the first word, and I'm going to be able to see your mouths move or not move. I'm going to ask you to move or to repeat a couple of words when I point to you. So the first word is heart. Heart. The second, good, I saw lips moving. Thank you. The second word is science. Science. And the third word we're going to add in, because you did so well with that, is inspiration. Inspiration.
Great.
You see, heart, science, inspiration, that's what we are all about as Rotarians. And the first ask, I have two asks this evening. The first is, in your year as a Rotarian, in your E-Club, move the needle forward in whatever way you can. Maybe it's signing up for Rotary Direct. Maybe it's getting that next Paul Harris Fellow. Maybe it is, as you've seen, becoming involved in an international project. Whatever you do, you choose to do it, but just move that needle forward. As we all do that, if we all do that, it makes a huge difference to what happens in our world. The second thing I'm going to ask you, and I have to show you my prop here. I carry this around with me. It's getting quite battered. It used to have some nice golf shoes in it, but they didn't help my game out, so I had to repurpose the box. What do I put in a shoebox of life? Well, I put cards, letters, notes, photos, newspapers, clippings, whatever reminds me of my journey as a Rotarian or as a humanitarian. And as I say to people, when you are a volunteer, there are days when it feels like you're pushing a rock uphill, or it feels like people are always asking you to do things. But what you do on those days is you open that box and you reread those notes or cards or letters or whatever, and you remind yourself of what you do as a Rotarian, as a humanitarian. And I think that reminds you of how important the work that you do is in this world. Now, if you were here in the physical sense, I would give you what I call the home kit. And I might even arrange ways of getting one of these to you, but it is just a card. And it's a blank card. And I ask people when they leave the meeting, I say, take this card with you and take some time in the next month and write to somebody who's made a difference in your life, someone who's motivated you, inspired you, taught you something that you've always valued, and maybe you haven't always officially thanked them for that. Because if 4,554 Rotarians all write one note, that's 4,554 additions to people's shoeboxes of life. And I think that can be one of the greatest imprints that we have when we take that time to acknowledge those who have contributed to us. So I thank you for your time and your attention. I thank you for making Rotary work in a different way, because I think you're on the cusp of something really important. And I see this having the potential to grow. Because the worst thing that can happen is a person says, I don't have the time, the resources, the energy to stay connected to Rotary. That's why that shoebox of life can help so much. I also want to sincerely thank you for making the life choice that you did to make a Rotarian. Be a Rotarian with your skills and your abilities, your heart, your talent. Any organization would welcome you with open arms. But because you chose Rotary, there are children who get 2 polio drops. There are young girls, young boys who are coming to school for the first time because at the end of the day, Rotary built a cistern and they can take water home to the family at the end of the day, a dual purpose. And there's a young Zimbabwean peace scholar somewhere who's being educated and trained, giving an amazing transformative experience. So thank you. Thank you for being in those seats this evening. Thank you for joining the vision of what an E-Club could be. I leave you with the thought that it's never about the individual, it's always about the we. And with that thought in mind, I just want to conclude by saying that together, I think we can, I think we will, and I think we must make a difference through the heart, the science, and the inspiration of Rotary. So that concludes my thoughts. I welcome any questions you might have. And I thank you. I didn't see anybody fall asleep. That feels really good. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We can't see Tanya there, so.
Yeah.
I know, it's dark.
In deference to poor Tanya being so far away,
Yeah.
if there are any questions for DG Craig, I'd like to let Tanya ask the first one.
Oh my. I don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay, all right. I just thought you're 3 hours away, but if you think of one, please
Oh, yeah.
chime in. Anybody who wants to say anything, please raise your hand so I just know who's going first. Oh, come on, people. This is your one chance for the governor. Come on. Go ahead, Fred.
So, Craig, did you learn your storytelling ability as a teacher?
Well, yes and no. I've always been a bit of a storyteller, and I loved teaching. I really did. I did that for 34 years while teaching in administration. But you know, the little story about Mary, the student of the month,
Right.
when you go to district governor-elect training, you are expected to do a 2-minute, and they time you, and you do it several times. And what happens is after, once you've developed your story, we were in a group of about 2 groups of about a dozen, then you'd go to a meal or whatever, and they would, without any warning, say, and now, from the Rotary Club of Campbell River, Craig Gillis, and you'd have to stand up and do your 2-minute. And they would time you and critique you. And then round 2 of that was, they would put a twist on it and they would say, and now from the Rotary Club of Campbell River, speaking on membership or foundation or Rotary, and you would have to transform your speech into a speech that focused on that topic. So anyway, that's my answer.
Great. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Well, you're very good at it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that.
He's following the form of district governors in true form.
Yes, that's right. Well, Bill McCarthy, you know, William McCarthy, we always speak of in reverential tones, because when we had our district conference, he chose us to host that conference. So it still, I consider it to be one of the most successful conferences, I believe, because I often hear people who come out of the woodwork to say, I was there, and that was a great conference. I think you had over 500.
It was wonderful. We had people charter planes and fly up. We literally, because Campbell River has that little airport just south of town, and
Yes.
we actually had people from the Shelton Olympia area drive up to Kent and then all fly up. And they were met by several Rotarians from the Campbell River Daybreak Club, and then drove them into town from there. It was really exciting. It was fun.
Well, and just so you know, I made all of the name tags. I was a relatively new Rotarian.
You were the one, okay.
And I learned about Poolsbo and Sequim.
Sequim.
And all of these places, I thought, are these real places?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
had so little knowledge of our district, you know.
Well,
So-
you know, when I was talking about that, Craig, when I was being interviewed for district governor, at the time you had a, John will remember that you had a BC prime minister, I think it was like Ilsu Duchon.
Oh,
Sound familiar? Well, they asked me in my interview, so Bill, can you name and pronounce the name of the BC premier? Well, I said, well, I know who he is, but I'm going to mess up the pronunciation. And I still can't pronounce it properly. By the way, before somebody else asks a question, Craig, you talked about your shoebox.
yes.
It's still on my bulletin board, but it's going to go into my shoebox. But Craig wrote the most wonderful complimentary note to me that he gave me when I visited the Tumwater Club. And it's basically telling me how when he soon after he was in Rotary, I had come to Campbell River and we did the conference, and he just told me about his memories of that. So that, before it gathers too much dust, Craig, it's going to go into my
Oh,
shoebox.
thank you. That,
'Cause that's an
appreciate
honor,
that very
and I
much.
thank you for that. Please, somebody else ask a question. John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I love your little town. I really want to know how come I got skunk fishing up there last year.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see the island for the smoke was the first part of the problem.
Mhm.
And I never fed so many dogfish, so much bait my
Yeah.
entire life.
You know, although it turned out to be a pretty good summer. But you're right, there was a period of time there, and I think you're right. I actually was accused of bringing the smoke down from BC to the southern Washington clubs, but I said I put a big net up at the border, and I guess the weave was a little too liberal on me. Well, thanks for coming up there, and keep coming up and
Yeah.
look us up. We built the Maritime Heritage Center
Yeah.
there, and it's a great place for both of the clubs meet there now. And it was one of those spectacular projects that almost puts the club under, but when it's
Yeah.
done, you just feel so darn proud.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's a tremendous project. The impact that both your Rotary clubs in Campbell River have had on the community. I mean, the Seawalk.
Seawalk.
I love the Seawalk. The bridge, the bridge
Benton
over
Bridge.
the river.
Yeah, over the Elk Falls now.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, no, it's an advantage we have, as those of you who live in smaller communities will know. We just have more of an opportunity to showcase what we've got, or it's more noticeable
Mhm.
than in the larger cities, where I think the other buildings and clubs kind of envelop the Rotary brand sometimes.
You know, Craig, when I think about our area, we have 550 Rotarians, Fred, roughly, right, in 9 clubs. But if you could walk around any of our communities and randomly ask somebody, do you know anything about Rotary? You'll probably get a shrug or a no. But when I was visiting Campbell River and I was on my way home, and I pulled into the local station to fill up with gasoline, petrol, and I had my Rotary pin on, and this young lady who was the teller, the cashier, was like, "Oh my gosh, you're Rotary. I so love you people." And I said, "Well, why?" Simple thing. Because she says, "I work behind this desk 8 hours a day. It's really boring. But I can swivel my chair around," and you have a roundabout right there in the middle of
Yes.
town.
Yeah.
And Rotary planted all the flowers and did all the landscaping. She says, "Every time I turn around, I thank Rotary for that view I get to see."
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, how cool is that?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't happen in our area, would it, Fred?
No.
No, unfortunately. So to emphasize or strengthen Craig's points, the smaller communities really appreciate the impact of Rotary.
Yeah.
What we're really discovering, is that a lot of people really just don't get Rotary.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of work to do. The 3 puzzle pieces that we worked with this year in some of our training were, as you would expect, membership, foundation, and brand. And I'm not sure that I see brand in the same way as I do, membership and foundation, but it really is getting the Rotary name out there. And we've started to be really deliberate, when we go to, say we do a Rotarians read with the kids in our classes. Well, we all are really purposeful now in wearing Rotary brand wear. So we can ask the kids, what do you notice about this? And they'll say, well, it's that wheel thing, and you can say, well, it's Rotary brand. Where do you see that in town? And then you brainstorm all the different things that they've seen, you see. And I think we have to start even younger to teach people what Rotary is. Yeah.
Very good point, Craig. Thank you. That is a good point. Does anyone else have anything for Craig? because I want to, if not, I want to give you a formal thank you, District Governor Craig.
Oh,
I know this is a little late. Yep. Thank you, Jerry. That's a good idea. I want to thank you very much for, this is a late evening. I remember doing a couple of dinners late, and by the time 8 o'clock came around, I was exhausted when I was doing my Rotary trek. And thank you to Meredith for providing the technical expertise. And Craig, sincerely, thank you very much. This is the second time I've heard your talk, and you know what? I actually picked up a couple more new points. So thank you very much.
thank you. And I want to thank you and your group for your flexibility. I kind of made a boo-boo the first time. I hadn't realized that one of the clubs had me booked in for a kind of social evening with their board and a kind of a talk and so on. And so it conflicted. And your flexibility means a lot, as does the support of Meredith is our district council chair. And so, winter, spring, summer, or fall, all I have to do is call.
Can I mute you?
Be there, Okay.
Craig, thank you so very, very much. I think
you.
everyone enjoyed your talk.
Yeah.
And I look forward to meeting you down the road again, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. And if anybody has questions, I'm easy to find. I have only one email. And it's easily findable. It's my name @shaw.ca with a dot in between Craig and Gillis. So
Gillis.
Shoot me an email or phone me. I do try to get back to people really quickly. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Craig. And everyone, thank you for being here tonight. And I hope that you took away something from Craig's talk. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Right now.